The storm rolled over Atlanta like a restless drumbeat, thunder cracking above the soaked streets. Naomi Carter adjusted her hood, clutching her umbrella tight as she stepped off the late bus. Her shoes splashed through muddy puddles, the air thick with the smell of wet asphalt and pine. It had been another 12-hour shift at Grady Memorial Hospital, and all she wanted was warmth, her son, and the quiet hum of her old house in West End. But as lightning split the sky, she noticed a figure standing alone near the corner store. The streetlights flickered, washing silver across something that wasn't quite human. The figure's skin shimmered faintly, as if the rain carried light instead of water. For a second, Naomi froze, her heart leaping into her throat. The figure shuddered beneath the downpour, crouched, trembling, without any cover. She hesitated. "Lord, help me not be crazy," she whispered, then approached. "Hey, you okay out here?" The being lifted its head slowly. Its eyes were wide, not threatening, just lost. The sound that came from its mouth was low and melodic, almost like a hum breaking through static. Naomi didn't understand the words, but she understood the tone, pleading, tired, afraid. She sighed, opening her umbrella wider and stepping close enough to share the space. "You look like you need this more than me." For a moment they stood together in the rain, an exhausted woman and a drenched stranger not of this world. The light from the corner store glinted off the creature's silver-blue skin, and Naomi could see now that its hands, though alien, trembled the same way hers did after a long day. Compassion pushed aside her fear. Before diving deeper into Naomi's incredible act of kindness, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful human stories from the stars. The stranger tilted its head, blinking slowly. "Shell, tear," it murmured, the syllables broken but clear enough. Naomi swallowed hard. "You talk, you mean you need shelter?" A faint nod, a spark of trust. "All right then," she said under her breath. "I can't just leave you out here." She glanced toward her street, lined with old magnolia trees bending under the rain. "Come on, my place isn't far." They walked in silence. Naomi's heart pounded as thunder rumbled overhead. The stranger limped slightly, leaving faint traces of luminescent blue footprints that washed away in seconds. Every instinct told her she was making a mistake, but something deeper whispered that kindness wasn't a mistake, even when it scared you. Her thoughts drifted to Micah, her 9-year-old boy waiting at home. He'd be worried if she was late again. He was the reason she worked double shifts, the reason she pushed through exhaustion and loneliness. "He's gonna freak out when he sees you," she muttered with a soft, nervous laugh. When they reached her porch, the storm had eased into a heavy drizzle. Naomi fumbled with her keys, still unsure whether this decision made her brave or foolish. She turned to the stranger. "You got a name?" The being hesitated, then placed a hand on its chest. "Ravel." The sound was fluid, like ripples in water. "Darvel," she repeated slowly. "All right, Ravel, I'm Naomi. Welcome to Atlanta, I guess." He blinked again, perhaps trying to mimic a smile. The faint glow on his skin pulsed warmer for a moment before dimming. Naomi caught herself smiling back. Inside, the air smelled faintly of lavender and laundry detergent. She pointed to the couch. "Sit down, okay?" "I'll get you a towel." Ravel moved carefully, his gaze scanning family photos on the wall. Her and Micah at the park, her mother's church choir, snapshots of everyday life. He seemed almost reverent. As Naomi handed him the towel, she noticed small specks of light clinging to the fabric, like pollen glowing faintly blue. "What in the world?" she murmured. Ravel watched her reaction, then bowed his head slightly. "Safe," he said softly, voice trembling. "I mean no harm." She nodded slowly, sitting across from him. "All right then, Ravel. One night. Just one." Outside, the rain began to fade. Inside, two strangers, one human, one not, listened to the storm's final rumble and wondered what tomorrow might bring. Naomi barely slept that night. The steady rhythm of rain against the windows mixed with the sound of her own thoughts. Every creak in the house made her tense. Part of her feared she'd wake to find that glowing figure gone, or worse, that someone else had found him first. But when dawn pushed through the blinds soft and gold, she found Ravel still sitting quietly on the couch, wrapped awkwardly in the towel she'd given him. Micah's sleepy voice came from the hallway. "Mama, who's that?" Naomi turned, startled. Her son stood in his Star Wars pajamas, hair puffed into uneven curls, rubbing his eyes. She began, glancing at Ravel, who looked just as confused as Micah did. "This is Ravel. He needed a place to stay for the night." Micah's eyes widened. He's not human." Ravel tilted his head. "Not human," he repeated carefully, his accent soft and melodic. Naomi crouched to meet Micah's eyes. "Baby, you remember how Grandma always said to help folks when they're lost? Well, Ravel's just really far from home." Micah studied him for a long moment, then whispered, "Can he eat pancakes?" Ravel blinked. "Cakes?" Naomi couldn't help but laugh, the tension easing for a moment. "Guess we're about to find out." As the smell of butter and syrup filled the kitchen, Ravel watched every motion with quiet fascination. His glowing patterns shifted faintly with each breath, pulsing in rhythm with the music on Naomi's old radio. The warmth of the kitchen seemed to calm him. When Naomi set a plate in front of him, Ravel touched the pancakes lightly, as if testing temperature. "Food? For sharing?" "Yeah," Naomi said gently. "It's what we do here." He mimicked her movements, trying a small bite. His glow brightened slightly. "Sweet, warm," Micah grinned. "See? Told you they're good." Naomi smiled too, but her mind buzzed with questions. "Ravel, how'd you get here?" He hesitated, searching for words. "Sky, ship broke, storm strong, crash, near metal tower." "I walk." "You mean the old spaceport?" Naomi murmured. "That's miles away." Ravel nodded slowly. "Need safe place. Fix ship. But people see, afraid." She felt a pang of empathy. "Yeah," she said softly. "Humans can be like that sometimes." Micah leaned closer. "Where are you from?" Ravel looked toward the window, eyes catching the morning light. "Far. World of blue trees." "Hair hums like music," he paused. "I am botanist, keeper of life." Naomi frowned. "Botanist? Like a plant scientist?" "Yes, study growth, exchange seed between worlds." His voice was calm but heavy, as if carrying loss. But now, alone. Something in his tone struck Naomi deep. She knew that loneliness, the kind that follows you even when you're surrounded by people. "You're safe here," she said finally, "at least for now." Micah's curiosity softened into empathy. "Mama, can he stay longer?" Naomi hesitated, glancing toward the back door where rain still dripped from the eaves. "We'll see, baby. Let's just get through today." As morning stretched into afternoon, Ravel explored the house with quiet care. He paused at photos of Naomi's late mother, touching the edges reverently. He seemed drawn to symbols of life, plants on the windowsill, the mural of magnolias on the neighbor's wall, the worn Bible on the table. When Naomi caught him tracing the petals of her mother's old potted rose, she smiled faintly. She loved that plant, said it carried prayers. Ravel nodded slowly. "On my world, flowers carry memory. Same." The simplicity of that truth settled in her chest. Two worlds, both believing in living things as messengers. By evening, the air felt different, thicker, humming faintly. Ravel stood by the window, his glow dim but steady. Naomi noticed faint traces of luminescent dust along the windowsill, like tiny stars left behind. "Rest," she said softly. "Tomorrow we'll figure out what to do next." He turned, eyes reflecting gratitude deeper than words. "Thank you, Naomi Carter." As she switched off the kitchen light, Naomi couldn't shake the feeling that her home, her whole world, had shifted just a little closer to the unknown. The next morning broke with a heavy stillness, the kind that hangs after long rain. The air smelled clean, the red Georgia clay still damp beneath the sun. Naomi brewed coffee while Micah finished his cereal, the rhythmic sound of spoons against bowls grounding her in normalcy, if anything could be called normal now. Ravel sat quietly by the window, watching the soft steam curl from his cup as if it were something alive. "You don't drink coffee back where you're from?" Naomi asked, half teasing, half curious. Ravel shook his head slowly. "Drink light, not dark." She laughed lightly. "Well, baby, down here we survive on dark." Micah giggled, then darted off to grab the family photo album from the bookshelf. He sat cross-legged on the floor beside Ravel, flipping through old pictures of family cookouts, graduations, and holidays crowded with love. "This was Grandma," he said, pointing to a woman in a floral dress with a bright yellow head wrap. "She used to make everyone dance after dinner." Ravel leaned closer, studying the photo with an almost reverent focus. "She shines," he murmured. Naomi looked at the image too, warmth tugging at her chest. Yeah, she had that effect on people. Ravel's luminous skin pulsed faintly, like his body was responding to something deeper than sight. "On my world," he said softly, "we sing names of those who came before. They live through sound." Micah's eyes lit up. "We do that too. At church, Mama sings songs Grandma used to love. It makes her feel close." Naomi smiled at her son, surprised by the bridge forming right before her. "Maybe we're not so different after all," she said quietly. Ravel placed a hand over his chest, as if committing that thought to memory. "Not different," he agreed. For a while they simply existed together in that fragile peace. Naomi found herself studying Ravel's movements, precise, graceful, but tinged with fatigue. His body seemed to hum faintly when sunlight touched his skin. There was beauty in the strangeness, but also fragility. "Ravel," she said softly, "you hurt anywhere? From the crash?" He hesitated, then opened his palm to reveal a small crystal embedded near his wrist. The edges flickered with dim light. "Power seed broken." Naomi frowned. "Is that like a battery?" Ravel nodded slowly. "Lifelink. For travel, for work. Now." Fading. The weight of his words settled between them. Naomi didn't understand the science, but she recognized exhaustion, struggle, survival. "We'll figure something out," she said, "but first you need to rest." Micah's voice piped up again. "Can he come to the community center later? Ms. Lila's doing an art project." Naomi hesitated. The thought of Ravel outside, where anyone could see him, made her stomach twist. "Not yet, baby. Maybe one day." Ravel, sensing her unease, said gently, "Your world. Not ready to see me." Naomi met his gaze, her voice low. "Some people aren't ready for a lot of things. Doesn't mean we stop trying to make it better." For the first time, Ravel's expression softened into something unmistakably human, a smile, small and weary. "You try. You grow light." Those words lingered long after. When Micah left for school, Naomi sat with Ravel at the kitchen table. She told him stories, how her mother fought to buy their home when banks refused loans to families like theirs, how she'd built a garden in the backyard, even when the soil was poor. "She said the earth remembers kindness," Naomi whispered. Ravel listened closely, tracing invisible lines on the table. "The earth remembers everything," he said. "Even stars that fall to it." A quiet shiver ran through her. Maybe he was talking about himself. That evening, when Naomi looked outside, she saw Ravel standing barefoot in the yard. His hands hovered over the ground, and for a fleeting moment, the wet soil seemed to glow faintly beneath his touch. She blinked, unsure if it was real or a trick of fading light. He turned toward her and nodded once, an unspoken thank you. Naomi couldn't explain it, but deep down something told her the storm that brought him here hadn't ended yet. Naomi woke to the smell of damp earth, sharp and sweet like spring after a hard rain. For a moment she thought she was dreaming, but when she stepped into the hallway, the air shimmered faintly blue, carrying a soft, rhythmic hum. Her pulse quickened. "Ravel?" she called. No answer. Micah's room was empty, his sneakers gone from the door. She hurried to the back door, heart thudding, and stopped dead. Her backyard, once just patchy grass and her mother's struggling rosebush, now glowed with impossible life. Dozens of blossoms shimmered in the morning light, their petals translucent, pulsing with color. Violet, indigo, and silver. The air vibrated gently as if the flowers were breathing. Micah stood in the middle of it all, barefoot, holding one glowing petal in awe. "Mama, they sing," he whispered. Naomi felt her throat tighten. "Micah, get away from those things." Ravel stood a few feet away, his skin glowing brighter than she'd ever seen. "Safe," he said quickly. "They mean peace." "Peace?" Naomi echoed, still catching her breath. "You call turning my yard into an alien garden peaceful?" Ravel tilted his head, calm but serious. "Gift gratitude for shelter. My kind. When we receive care, we grow beauty." Naomi stared at him, words caught between disbelief and wonder. The flowers swayed gently, though there was no wind. Each hum seemed to echo her heartbeat. "They're alive," she murmured. "Alive," Ravel agreed. "They will fade if harmed, but they heal ground, make air clean." Micah crouched again, fascinated. "They smell like honey and rain," he said, voice trembling with excitement. "Can we keep them, Mama?" Naomi glanced at the fence separating her yard from Mrs. Ellis's, already noticing the curtain twitching next door. "I don't think that's our choice anymore," she muttered. Ravel lowered his gaze, his tone suddenly apologetic. "I did not mean to bring trouble. My body, when calm, it plants." "It is instinct." Naomi exhaled, torn between awe and dread. "You're saying this just happens?" "Yes. Where I rest, life grows." For a long moment, Naomi said nothing. She knelt, brushing a glowing petal between her fingers. It was warm, softer than silk, almost alive in her palm. She looked at Ravel, her voice low. "You could have warned me." He nodded slowly. "I am learning human ways." The hum deepened, a chord resonating through the soil. Naomi could almost feel it in her bones, comforting, steady. For the first time in years, her backyard didn't feel tired, it felt renewed. But her practical side fought back. "What if someone sees this? They'll come asking questions." "I've seen what happens when the government gets involved with things they don't understand." Ravel looked toward the sky, his expression unreadable. "If they come, I will go." Naomi folded her arms. "No, that's not what I meant. You're under my roof now. We'll handle this together." He studied her for a moment, then bowed his head slightly. "You are different. Many would fear." "I do fear," she admitted, her voice trembling. "But I'm not about to turn away someone who needed help. My mama didn't raise me that way." Micah tugged her sleeve. "Mama, look." One of the blossoms had bent toward her hand, releasing a faint mist that sparkled in the sunlight. The scent was clean, fresh, somehow familiar, like the old magnolias in her grandmother's yard. Naomi closed her eyes for a second, remembering those summer mornings, the warmth, the laughter. When she opened them again, she saw Ravel watching her with quiet understanding. "Your world still remembers beauty," he said softly. "That is rare." Naomi's chest tightened. "Then maybe it's time we start taking better care of it." A silence followed, deep and full. The flowers swayed as if in agreement, their light flickering like stars scattered across the earth. Naomi knew life had just changed again, but whether it was a blessing or a warning, she couldn't yet tell. By late afternoon, the hum of the alien flowers had become part of the neighborhood soundtrack, soft, melodic, almost hypnotic. Naomi tried to pretend things were normal, folding laundry, making calls for her next nursing shift, but her nerves thrummed beneath the quiet. Every time she glanced through the blinds, she saw someone else slowing down to stare at her backyard. Across the street, Mrs. Ellis and her niece stood whispering by their porch. A group of teenagers passed by, phones raised, laughing and filming the glowing blooms. Naomi's heart tightened. The garden that had sprung overnight, so beautiful, so alive, was no longer a secret. "Micah," she said sharply, "close those curtains." "But Mama, they just lookin'." "That's exactly the problem," she said, trying to sound calm. "We don't need anybody's attention right now." He frowned but obeyed, tugging the curtains shut. Behind him, Ravel stood silently near the window, his eyes following the movements outside. "They see too much," he said softly. Naomi rubbed her temples. "Yeah, well, it's hard to hide a backyard that glows like a disco." Ravel tilted his head, confusion flickering across his expression. "Disco?" she sighed. "Never mind." He turned his gaze back toward the faint light seeping through the fabric. "If the watchers come," he murmured, "you must not protect me. It is dangerous." Her voice sharpened. "I already did protect you. That's not changing." A knock at the door cut through the air. Naomi froze. 3 heavy knocks, not friendly ones. Micah's voice dropped to a whisper. "Mama, what if it's the police?" Naomi took a slow breath, straightened her shoulders, and opened the door halfway. 2 figures stood on the porch, both wearing dark jackets with the seal of the Interplanetary Liaison Bureau stitched on the sleeve. The letters ILB gleamed faintly under the setting sun. "Ms. Naomi Carter?" one of them asked. He was tall, clean-cut, voice calm but rehearsed. "We're conducting a standard environmental inquiry. Reports of unusual light phenomena were filed in this area. May we ask you a few questions?" Naomi forced a polite smile. "Light phenomena? You mean my porch light?" The woman beside him, smaller and sharper, held up a tablet. "We've detected energy readings consistent with non-terrestrial bioactivity. Is there any chance you've seen or collected something unusual after last night's storm?" Naomi's mind raced. "Collected? No, ma'am, just rain and muddy shoes, same as everybody else." The agents exchanged a look she couldn't read. The woman leaned forward slightly. "Would you mind if we took a quick scan of your property for safety compliance?" Naomi's smile tightened. "You got a warrant for that scan?" The woman blinked, momentarily thrown. The man stepped in. "Ma'am, it's routine if you're concerned." "I'm concerned about strangers scanning my house without asking, right?" Naomi interrupted, her tone firm. "You want to come back with paperwork? I'll have sweet tea waiting. Till then, I got dinner to make." For a moment, the silence crackled between them. Then the man nodded stiffly. "Of course, we'll return if necessary." When the door clicked shut, Naomi leaned against it, exhaling hard. Her hands trembled. "They know something," she whispered. Ravel stepped from the hallway, his glow dim. "They will not stop." "I figured that," Naomi said. She looked toward Micah, who stood pale and quiet. "Baby, I need you to promise me something. No videos, no pictures, no talking about the flowers. Not to your friends, not to Ms. Lila, not to anybody, you hear me?" Micah nodded solemnly. "Yes, Mom." Ravel's voice was low, steady. "I can hide if needed." Naomi turned to him, her jaw tight. "You shouldn't have to. But until I figure out what they're after, we keep this between us." Outside, the last bit of daylight slipped away, and with it came the low hum of engines, unmarked drones sweeping lazily across the neighborhood sky. Naomi felt her stomach twist. The watchers had already arrived. The next morning brought a thick haze over Atlanta, sunlight struggling through the fog. Naomi poured herself a cup of coffee, though her hands were still unsteady. The ILB visit had shaken her more than she wanted to admit. Every noise outside made her pulse quicken. Every passing car felt like another warning. Yet inside the house, something unexpected softened the fear. Laughter. Micah and Ravel were sitting cross-legged on the living room floor, surrounded by papers, pencils, and a flickering holographic pad that projected geometric shapes in mid-air. Micah grinned as the shapes rearranged themselves. "No way! You made it spell my name." Ravel's glow pulsed faintly. "You teach letters," he said carefully. "I teach pattern. We trade." Naomi leaned against the doorframe, hiding a smile. "You two look busy." Micah looked up, beaming. "He's helping me with math. It's like magic, but science." Ravel tilted his head. "Magic and science, both are words for what we do not yet understand." Naomi chuckled, the tension in her shoulders easing for a moment. "You sound like my mama used to." Ravel looked curious. "She was teacher?" "In her way," Naomi said. "She taught people to heal with patience, not just medicine." Ravel nodded slowly. "Healing is rare strength." The quiet sincerity in his tone caught her off guard. Naomi sipped her coffee, feeling a sudden warmth rise behind her ribs, something like gratitude, maybe even trust. But she pushed the thought aside. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. Not with drones hovering near rooftops and whispers spreading through the neighborhood. "Ravel," she said gently, "you need to stay inside for a while. Folks around here, they don't react well to what they don't know." He looked toward the window, where faint sunlight touched the curtains. "Your world builds walls, not to protect but to divide." Naomi sighed. "You're not wrong. But sometimes walls are all that keep us safe." Micah glanced between them, brow furrowed. "But Mama, maybe if people saw the flowers, they'd understand. They'd see he's not bad." Naomi's voice softened. "Baby, you know how folks can be. They see something different, they get scared. Remember how they treated Mr. Harris when he moved in from Chicago? And he was just human." Micah's shoulders drooped. "That wasn't fair." "No, it wasn't," she said. "That's why we're careful." Ravel lowered his gaze. "Fear grows faster than kindness." The words hung heavy in the air. Naomi sat down beside them, watching as the holographic pad dimmed. "You've seen that before, haven't you?" she asked quietly. Ravel hesitated. "My people once shared knowledge with another world. We gave them life seeds, plants that heal, air that purifies. They took, but did not listen. When we asked for harmony, they sent fire." Naomi's throat tightened. "So that's why you came here?" His eyes flickered with faint light. "I came to learn if your kind could choose differently." She didn't know what to say. For years she'd seen people break under pressure, seen cruelty born from fear, but also grace from those who had nothing. Maybe humanity wasn't easy to define. Micah's voice broke the silence. "Mama says people can change. You just got to give them a reason." Ravel looked at the boy with quiet admiration. "Then perhaps I am not wrong to hope." Naomi watched them, her son's open smile, Ravel's gentle patience, and felt something shift. Amid all the fear, there was still room for connection. She rose, glancing toward the back window. The flowers were still glowing faintly in the garden, bending toward the light. She spoke more to herself than to either of them. "We'll figure this out." "Together," Ravel turned to her. "Together is how life grows." For a long moment, the hum of the alien blooms filled the air, soft, steady, like a heartbeat, reminding Naomi that courage wasn't the absence of fear, but the choice to face it anyway. By midweek, the neighborhood buzzed like a restless hive. The strange glow behind Naomi's house had become the newest topic on every porch and barbershop corner. People came under the excuse of checking in, but Naomi knew curiosity when she saw it. The once friendly warmth of West End now carried a current of suspicion. At the community market, whispers trailed behind her. "She's hiding something," one woman murmured near the tomatoes. "You seen her yard? Looks like the 4th of July back there." Another voice chimed in, lower but sharper. "That light ain't natural. Mark my words, government's already watching." Naomi kept her head high, paid for her groceries, and walked home in silence. But inside her heart pounded. Fear spread faster than truth. When she reached her block, Pastor Owens was waiting by her gate. His broad frame was familiar comfort, his deep voice calm but serious. "Naomi," he said, "we need to talk." She sighed. "I figured." They sat on the porch, cicadas humming in the heavy afternoon air. "Folks are nervous," he said gently. "Rumors can grow wild if they don't get sunlight. You want to tell me what's going on back there?" Naomi hesitated, glancing toward the backyard where faint blue light glimmered beneath the fence. "It's complicated, Pastor, but I promise, it's not dangerous." He studied her face for a long moment. "You believe that, but others don't. Some are saying we should call the city, even the Bureau." Her jaw tightened. "So kindness has an expiration date now?" He shook his head. "That's not what I'm saying. People fear what they don't understand. Same thing they feared in us back in the day." His eyes softened. "But if you want to protect what's good, you gotta help people see it." Inside the house, Ravel listened quietly. the faint hum of his body resonating with the tension in Naomi's voice. When she returned, his glow was dim. "They turn against you," he said softly. "Not all of them," Naomi replied. "Some are just scared." He tilted his head. "Fear and anger are roots of same tree. My kind learned that long ago." Micah, sitting at the kitchen table, looked up from his homework. "But what if we showed them the flowers help? They make the air cleaner, right?" Naomi considered it. "Maybe, but if they see you, baby, they won't stop to listen. They'll just see something different, and different's all it takes." Ravel's tone was quiet but steady. "Where I come from, we also faced such walls, until someone dared to open them." Naomi gave a small, tired smile. "Sounds like a nice story, but down here it's never that simple." That night she couldn't sleep. The distant sound of drones buzzed faintly overhead, mingling with the hum of the flowers. Through the open window, she could hear neighbors talking in low voices across the street. One voice rose above the rest. "If that thing brings trouble to our door, we won't wait around." Her stomach knotted. She'd seen that tone before, the kind that came before violence, before blame. The next morning, she found Ravel outside in the garden. The flowers had spread farther, weaving into the fence like living lace. "They reach for hope," he said when she approached. "They do not fear the fence." Naomi stared at the luminous petals curling around her fingertips. Maybe fences need more of that. Behind them, the sound of approaching footsteps drew her attention. Pastor Owen stood at the gate again, but this time others followed. Mrs. Ellis, a few church members, even one of the neighborhood teens who'd filmed the garden days ago. Naomi's pulse quickened, but the pastor raised a calming hand. "We didn't come to judge," he said. "We came to see." The tension hung thick as the heat, but for the first time Naomi felt something else flicker beneath it. Possibility. The same kind her mama used to pray for. The days that followed felt like holding her breath underwater. Naomi moved through her routine, work, dinner, bedtime, pretending that the world outside her fence wasn't shifting, but she could feel it. The neighborhood had gone quiet in the wrong kind of way. Conversations stopped when she walked by. Cars lingered too long at the end of her street. And every night, the hum in the sky grew louder. On the third night, the sound wasn't just hum. It was the mechanical whine of drones. Naomi stepped onto the porch, heart pounding, and saw faint red lights flickering above the rooftops. 3 of them moving in slow circles. Her stomach turned cold. Inside, Ravel stood by the back door, watching through the glass. His body pulsed with dim blue light. "They search," he said softly. "You sure it's them?" Naomi whispered. He nodded once. "Their machines follow energy scent. The flowers sing too loud." Naomi clenched her fists. "Then we need to quiet them down right now." Ravel shook his head. "They cannot stop. Life never hides for long." She took a steadying breath, forcing down the panic. "Then we'll hide you instead." They moved quickly. Micah helped gather blankets and food, while Ravel followed Naomi to the basement door. She pulled aside an old rug, revealing the narrow stairs leading to her mother's old root cellar, cool, dark, and hidden beneath layers of brick. "It's not much," she said, voice shaking, "but no one will find you down here." Ravel placed a hand over his chest. "You risk much." Naomi met his eyes. "I already told you, we're in this together." As he descended, the glow from his skin lit the narrow walls in faint silver. Micah stood at the top of the stairs, holding a flashlight. "Mama," he whispered, "what if they come inside?" "Then we stay calm," Naomi said firmly, though her heart hammered in her chest. "We don't open that door unless I say so." Micah nodded, biting his lip. Hours dragged by. The drones moved closer, their hum vibrating through the air like restless bees. Naomi turned off every light, pulled the curtains tight, and sat with Micah in the dark. Through the cracks, flashes of red light swept across the windows. She prayed they'd pass. Then came the knock, sharp, metallic, deliberate. Naomi froze. Micah's hand gripped hers. A voice called from outside filtered through a speaker. "Miss Carter, this is the Interplanetary Liaison Bureau. We need to speak with you immediately." Her mouth went dry. "Lord, give me strength," she whispered under her breath. The voice came again, calmer this time. "We've detected elevated bioenergy emissions from your property. This is a matter of planetary safety. Please open the door." Naomi rose slowly, every step feeling like it carried the weight of the whole world. She opened the door just enough to see two figures backlit by the drone lights, the same agents who had visited days ago. "I told you," she said evenly. "You need a warrant." The woman held up a device that emitted a soft blue pulse. "We already have probable cause." "Step aside, please." Naomi stood firm. "You're not coming in here without papers." For a tense moment, no one moved. The man's jaw tightened. "Ms. Carter, interference with ILB operations is a federal offense." She crossed her arms. "And barging into my home without proof is still trespassing. Do you want to scan something? Scan the sky." The woman's eyes flicked past Naomi toward the glowing haze leaking faintly through the back window. "Something's in there," she said quietly. Naomi's stomach twisted. Then, as if answering the tension, the flowers in the yard pulsed brightly, flooding the porch in blue light. The agents stepped back in alarm, their scanners blinking red. "Ma'am," the man said sharply, "what are you hiding?" Naomi forced her voice steady. "Nothing that belongs to you." Behind her, the hum deepened, gentle yet powerful, like the earth itself was taking her side. The silence that followed felt endless. Naomi stood frozen in the doorway, heart pounding so loud she could barely hear the agent's retreating footsteps. When the last drone light faded from the window, she finally locked the door, drew the curtains tight, and let her knees buckle beneath her. Micah rushed to her side. "They're gone, Mama," he whispered, eyes wide. "For now," she said, voice shaking, "but they'll be back." When she opened the trapdoor to the cellar, a faint glow rose up like moonlight. Ravel looked up from the shadows, eyes dim and weary. "It is time I tell truth," he said softly. Naomi frowned. "Truth about what?" He climbed the steps slowly, each movement heavy with exhaustion. His light flickered weakly as he spoke. "You believe I came by accident? That storm broke my ship. That was part true. But I did not flee Sky by mistake." Naomi's pulse quickened. "Then why are you here?" He looked toward the window, the faint hum of the alien flowers echoing in his tone. "I ran from my people, from those who fear peace." Micah's brow furrowed. "You mean you're a criminal?" Ravel shook his head. "Not for harm, for choice. My world divides, those who build and those who conquer. I was chosen to serve the second, but I could not. I escaped with seeds meant for war, and I turned them to life." Naomi felt her breath catch. "War? The flowers," he continued, "were born to destroy soil of enemies. I changed them, taught them to heal instead. For that, they called me traitor." The air in the room felt heavier. Naomi sank into a chair, trying to make sense of it. "So those agents, they weren't just after you because you're alien. They think you're dangerous." Ravel's eyes met hers, full of quiet grief. "Because I once carried danger, because I could make it again." Naomi's hands trembled as she pressed them together. "And can you?" He hesitated. "If I wished, but I do not. I vowed never to create death again." Micah looked between them, his young face a storm of confusion. "But you made flowers, not weapons." Ravel's glow dimmed. "The line is thin. What heals one world could poison another. That is what they fear." Naomi sat back, staring at the floor. Her instincts screamed at her to push him away, to protect her son, her home. Yet beneath the fear was something deeper, recognition. She knew what it meant to be judged by your origin, to have people see danger instead of humanity. She spoke softly. "You didn't choose where you came from. You chose who you are. That matters more." Ravel tilted his head, voice low. "On my planet, there is saying, roots decide the tree." "You say choice decides?" "Yeah," Naomi said, her voice steadying. "Choice decides." Micah stepped forward, small hand reaching for Ravel's. "Then we'll help you. Mama always helps people." Naomi smiled faintly, though tears stung her eyes. "Baby, this isn't like patching up someone at the clinic. This is bigger than us." Ravel looked at her with quiet conviction. "No. It is always small kindness that changes great tides." His words lingered in the air like truth made visible. Naomi swallowed hard. "You said they called you traitor. If they find out you're here, what happens to you?" Ravel's glow dimmed to a faint shimmer. "They erase, not just me, but all memory of me. My work, my song, my kind heart, all gone." Naomi's chest tightened. "Then we're not letting that happen." He blinked slowly, uncertain. "You would risk for me again?" She met his gaze, her voice firm. "You risked everything for peace. Least I can do is return the favor." Micah's voice was soft but sure. "We're family now, right?" Ravel's expression shifted. An unfamiliar emotion, something fragile and human. "Family," he repeated, the word trembling in his mouth. "Yes, that is word I will keep." Outside, thunder rolled in the distance again, low and rumbling, as if the sky itself was warning them. Naomi looked toward the dark horizon and whispered, "Then we better be ready." By morning, the air over West End felt electric. The night storm had passed, but tension lingered heavier than the humidity. Naomi woke to the sound of voices outside, neighbors talking, arguing, gathering near her fence. The glow from the alien flowers shimmered faintly through the slats, like embers waiting for wind. She pulled on her robe and stepped onto the porch. Mrs. Ellis was there with 2 other women from church, their expressions tight with worry. Behind them, a small crowd had formed, dozens of faces, some familiar, some not. "Naomi, baby," Mrs. Ellis said gently, "we know you mean well, but this thing you got back there, it's bringing the wrong kind of attention." Naomi kept her voice calm. "You think I don't know that?" A young man from down the block spoke up. "The Bureau's been driving through twice a day. They set up cameras near the corner store. You can't keep hiding whatever's in there." Naomi's jaw tightened. "I'm not hiding danger. I'm protecting life." The man frowned. "That glow don't look like life to me." Before Naomi could answer, Pastor Owens arrived, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "All right now," he said, raising his hands. "We came to talk, not to tear each other apart." He turned to Naomi. "You said before it wasn't dangerous. That true?" "Yes," she said firmly. "It's not dangerous. It's different. But it's here to help." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone muttered, "Help with what? Getting us all investigated?" Naomi's patience thinned. "You all remember last summer when the city truck stopped collecting garbage for 2 weeks? You remember the smell, the sickness, how the soil near the creek went black? Well, those flowers out there, they've been cleaning the air since they bloomed. You can breathe better now because of them." That drew silence. The truth settled over the crowd like dawn through clouds. Pastor Owens nodded slowly. "So this visitor you got, he's the one who made them?" Naomi hesitated, then said, "Yes." Gasps fluttered through the group. The young man stepped back. "You saying there's one of them in your house?" Naomi lifted her chin. "I'm saying there's someone in my house who needed shelter. Someone who's done nothing but bring life to this place." The pastor studied her, eyes full of something deeper than fear, recognition. "Then maybe it's time people remember what real hospitality means." Mrs. Ellis crossed her arms. "Pastor, you can't be serious. If the Bureau finds out we're protecting an alien—" "They already know," Naomi interrupted, "and they'll be back soon. But I'm not letting them take him." The crowd stirred again, voices rising in worry and defiance. Pastor Owens raised his hand. "Listen, everyone. Maybe the government don't see what we see. Maybe all they see is threat. But this community's built on faith and care, not fear. If we turn our backs now, we forget who we are." A few nodded, uncertain but moved. The tension thinned just enough for Naomi to speak again. "You all want to protect this neighborhood? Then help me protect what's keeping it alive." Mrs. Ellis's expression softened. "You really believe he's good?" Naomi met her gaze. "I don't just believe it. I've seen it." That was when Micah came running out the door, clutching one of the glowing petals. "Look," he shouted, breathless. I tested it at school. It makes water clean. It fixed the pond by the playground. The crowd stared, speechless. The pastor looked out over the group, then at Naomi. Seems the Lord sends miracles in all kinds of packages, he said quietly. Down the street, the hum of engines echoed, the ILB's vehicles returning. Naomi turned toward the sound, her heartbeat steady now. Then I guess it's time we show them what humanity looks like. And for the first time, the crowd didn't scatter. They stood beside her, shoulders squared, ready to face whatever came next. The tension didn't fully dissipate after the crowd left Naomi's porch. The hum of engines had faded, but the weight of impending action hung in the air. Naomi stayed by the window watching as the last few stragglers headed down the street. Micah stood beside her, holding the glowing petal he'd carried through the crowd like a badge of honor. "They're scared, Mama," Micah said softly. "But I don't think they're bad. They're just confused." Naomi glanced down at her son, his innocent faith shining through despite everything. "I think you're right, baby. Sometimes people just need to see the truth for themselves." Her thoughts turned back to Aravel, who had stayed in the house, staying out of sight for now. The ILB hadn't come directly after him yet, but the way the drones circled, the way they watched, she knew it was only a matter of time. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Naomi froze, heart skipping a beat. She wasn't expecting anyone. Slowly she moved to open it. When she did, she found Pastor Owen standing there, his hand raised in greeting. "I thought you could use a little help," he said with a quiet smile. He held out a basket of fresh produce from the community garden, tomatoes, leafy greens, and a few small bundles of herbs. Naomi blinked, taken aback by the gesture. "Pastor, You've got a lot on your plate," he interrupted gently. "We all do, but we're here for you. Whatever happens next, you're not alone." She smiled weakly, overwhelmed. "Thank you, really." Micah walked up behind her, holding the glowing petal. "Pastor, look what I found. It's from the flowers. They make stuff clean." "Like magic." The pastor's eyes widened as he took the petal from Micah's hand. He examined it closely. "I see," he said, his voice softening with wonder. "This is something special. I've never seen anything like it before." Naomi's throat tightened, the lump of anxiety pressing hard against her chest. "They clean water," she whispered, "and they clean the air. It's more than just beauty. It's a gift, but people don't understand." Pastor Owens looked at her, eyes filled with a quiet resolve. "Maybe they just need to see it with their own eyes. You said these flowers are doing something good. Maybe it's time they show the world." Naomi exhaled slowly, looking down at the petal. "I don't know if I can make them see. People are scared. They think I'm hiding something dangerous." Micah's voice broke through her thoughts. "But it's not dangerous, Mama. Look." He ran to the back door and flung it open, the soft glow from the garden spilling into the house. Naomi followed him, stepping out into the cool evening air. The flowers were still there, their soft blue light mingling with the last traces of sunset. But tonight, something was different. The air felt lighter, the flowers reaching higher, stretching toward the sky. Micah held out the petal in his hand, watching it shimmer under the growing light. He kneeled on the ground, gently placing it in the soil beneath the flowers. It immediately absorbed into the earth, as if the garden itself accepted the gift. The flowers shimmered in response, as if they recognized the offering. Naomi's breath caught in her throat. She watched as the flowers bloomed brighter, the air thick with the sweet, clean scent of life. Her heart pounded in her chest, a mixture of wonder and dread. Pastor Owen stepped up beside her, his voice quiet. "Maybe it's time we let the world see. Maybe this is how we heal it." Naomi closed her eyes, a wave of emotion flooding through her. "It's beautiful," she said softly, almost to herself. "But it's more than just beautiful. It's a chance for everything to change." Micah looked up at her, eyes wide with excitement. "Mama, we should show everyone. We should tell them the flowers can help." Naomi hesitated, her eyes lingering on the glowing flowers. In that moment, something clicked. If the flowers could change the earth, heal the land, maybe they could change people too. But it would have to start with her. It would have to start with showing them that kindness, not fear, was the answer. I'll do it, Naomi said finally, her voice steady. I'll show them what they're afraid of. I'll show them that it's not what they think. Micah grinned. And I'll help. She turned to him, her heart swelling with pride. Yes, baby, we'll do it together. The flowers glowed brighter, their soft hum filling the evening air. And for the first time in a long while, Naomi felt like maybe, just maybe, this was the beginning of something good. The next morning, Naomi stood in her living room, heart pounding as she looked at the clock. It was nearly 10 a.m., and the ILB agents had not shown up yet, but she could feel the tension building in her bones. The flowers were still glowing outside, their soft light creeping in through the windows. She knew it was only a matter of time before they came to take Ravel. Her thoughts kept racing, wondering how she could buy more time, how she could protect him. The community had rallied behind her, but it wasn't enough. The government didn't care about community support, they only saw a threat, and she knew, despite everything, that once they took him, they would erase him completely, his story lost to the world forever. Mom, are we going to be okay? Micah's small voice broke through her thoughts. She turned to see him standing by the door, holding a drawing in his hand. His bright eyes were full of worry, the weight of everything pressing down on his small shoulders. Naomi knelt down, taking the drawing from him. It was a picture of Ravel, his glowing skin surrounded by flowers. We're going to be okay, she whispered, even though she wasn't sure she believed it herself. Just then the doorbell rang. Naomi's heart skipped a beat. She stood up quickly, trying to steady her nerves. When she opened the door, it was Dr. Alexis Monroe, a familiar face, someone who had worked with the ILB for years. Dr. Monroe was black like Naomi, and despite her professional position, Naomi had always felt a sense of trust toward her. Naomi, Dr. Monroe said quietly, glancing behind her to ensure no one else was nearby. I'm here to help. Naomi looked at her, surprised. Help? I don't understand. Dr. Monroe stepped forward, lowering her voice. I'm not here as an agent, Naomi. I'm here as a scientist. I've been following the reports, and I think I can make a case for Ravel to stay. Naomi frowned. A case for him to stay? You don't understand. They're already watching the house. They'll take him. I know, Dr. Monroe said gently, but I've studied alien bioforms before. I've studied plants that have similar properties. The flowers, they're not just alien life. They're a critical part of Earth's future. Naomi shook her head. I don't know, the whole neighborhood's scared, and I'm scared too. How can I protect him? Dr. Monroe took a deep breath, her gaze softening. We both know what it's like to be judged by something we can't control. The color of our skin, where we come from. I think we both also know that not everyone's ready to see the truth. But that doesn't mean it's not there. Naomi felt a sharp pang in her chest. The words hit close to home. She had spent her whole life fighting against a system that saw her as less. Now she was fighting to protect someone who was being judged the same way. Dr. Monroe, I don't have the power to change anything, Naomi said, her voice cracking. You do, Dr. Monroe replied firmly. You've already started, Naomi. You've shown your community that kindness is more powerful than fear. Now you need to show the world the truth about Ravel, the truth about those flowers, and I can help you do that. Naomi's eyes searched Dr. Monroe's face, the weight of the decision heavy in the air. Finally, she nodded slowly. Okay, I'll do it. But we have to move fast. Doctor. Monroe smiled, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. I'll get the paperwork ready. If we can prove that Ravel and the flowers have positive environmental effects, we can stop the ILB from taking him. But Naomi, it'll take all of us, your community, your neighbors. They have to stand with you. Naomi turned back to look out the window at the flowers, their soft glow brighter than ever. She didn't know how she was going to do it, but in that moment she knew she had to. Not just for Ravel, but for herself, for her son, for the future. As she looked at Dr. Monroe, she realized that despite the fear and uncertainty, this wasn't just about protecting an alien. It was about protecting the hope that still lived in the world, a hope she wasn't ready to let go of. Let's do this, Naomi said, her voice steady. The morning light came through the blinds in soft, muted rays, but Naomi barely noticed. She was sitting at the kitchen table, going over the papers Dr. Monroe had brought. The evidence, the research, the potential, all of it weighed heavily on her. Her fingers trembled as she sifted through the pages, trying to keep her focus. "Are you sure about this?" Naomi whispered to herself. Micah came in, his little feet tapping against the floor. "Mama, is it time?" he asked, voice full of quiet excitement. Naomi looked up, forcing a smile. "Not yet, baby, but soon." The air in the room felt thick with anticipation. The reality of what was happening outside of her home was pressing in, and Naomi could almost hear the distant hum of drones circling the neighborhood, waiting for a chance to strike. But something had shifted within her. The decision had been made. Ravel appeared in the doorway, his form barely glowing but still noticeable in the dim light. "Naomi," he said softly, his voice low, "I do not want to cause you more pain. You do not have to risk for me." She turned to him, meeting his eyes. The fear in his voice was clear, but there was also something else. Something she hadn't heard before, a quiet acceptance. "We're past that," Naomi said firmly. "We've already risked. It's not about you anymore, it's about us, all of us." Together. Ravel nodded slowly, his light flickering slightly. "I do not belong here. I do not belong anywhere." Naomi stood, crossing the room until she was standing in front of him. "That's not true," she said softly, her voice firm. "You belong with us. You've given more than most people ever will. It's time we return the favor." A pause. Then, Ravel's voice cracked slightly, his glow dimming. "I do not know how to repay that kindness." Naomi placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the warmth radiate from him. "You don't have to repay it. You've already given enough. You taught us that kindness is stronger than fear. That's all anyone can ask for." The weight of the moment settled between them, and Naomi allowed herself to exhale. It felt as though a heavy burden had lifted. There was still so much uncertainty ahead, but in that moment she was certain of one thing. She wasn't going to let fear control her anymore. Micah approached, looking up at Ravel with innocent trust. "Are you staying?" Ravel knelt to Micah's level, his face softening. "Yes. For as long as I can." Micah grinned, his small hand reaching out to touch one of the flowers in the garden that still glowed faintly. "Then I'll keep helping you. We're all in this together, right, Ravel?" Ravel looked at Naomi, a flicker of something warm in his eyes. "Yes, together." Naomi smiled. This was what she had been fighting for, the belief that even in the face of the unknown, humanity could still choose kindness, could still choose to protect one another. The doorbell rang, and Naomi's heart skipped a beat. She looked at Ravel, then at Micah. "Stay here," she said softly. She opened the door, her pulse racing. Standing on her porch were two ILB agents, Dr. Monroe beside them, her presence a silent support. The agents' faces were set, their eyes scanning the yard, the flowers, the air. Naomi stood firm in the doorway. "Miss Carter," the man said, his voice cold but controlled, "we've come for the alien." Naomi met his gaze, holding it steady. "I don't have an alien. What I have is someone who's been treated as a threat for too long. And I'm not going to let you erase his existence." The agents exchanged a brief glance, but Naomi didn't look away. "The flowers," Naomi continued, "they're more than just plants. They're changing the environment. They're healing the air, purifying the soil. If you take him, you take that too." The woman agent took a step forward. "We'll need to see the data. We'll need to see evidence that what you're saying is true." Dr. Monroe spoke up. "I've already provided the reports. The flowers are a potential breakthrough. It's time you stop seeing this as a threat and start seeing it as a solution." Naomi's heart was in her throat, but her voice remained steady. "We have proof, and I'll show it to the world if I have to." The man studied her for a long moment. "We'll be in touch." With that, they turned, leaving Naomi standing at the door. She closed it slowly behind her, leaning against it for a moment as the adrenaline began to ebb. "I think we did it," Naomi said quietly to Ravel. Micah grinned. We did, Mama. Naomi's smile was genuine, the weight of fear lifting slightly. She turned to the window, looking out at the flowers, bright, vibrant, alive. And in that moment, she knew they had done the right thing. Fear hadn't won. Not today. Weeks passed after the agent's visit, but the tension didn't fully leave Naomi's home. The drones had stopped hovering above, but she could still feel their presence, lingering like a shadow, like something waiting to pounce. But the flowers in the garden had only grown stronger, their glow now steady and unyielding. Naomi's phone rang early one morning. It was Dr. Monroe, her voice calm but urgent. Naomi, we're ready. The data's solid. The flowers' environmental impact, their ability to purify soil, absorb toxins, this is real. We have everything we need to make a case, but you need to be ready to go public. Naomi's heart skipped a beat. Go public, she repeated, her voice low. You have to tell the world what's happening in your backyard, Dr. Monroe said. We need to show the government, the scientists and the people that these flowers, Ravel's gift, are the future. If we wait any longer, they'll take everything. Naomi looked out the window at the glowing blooms in the garden, the soft hum of their energy filling the quiet morning. She thought of Ravel, still staying hidden from the world. He'd spent days studying the plants, experimenting with the soil and water, amazed at what they could do. He was learning from Earth just as much as Earth was learning from him. I can't do this alone, Naomi said softly. You don't have to, Dr. Monroe assured her. The community's with you, the reports are in, the world's ready. You just need to stand with us. Naomi's eyes settled on Micah, who was playing near the back door, his fingers running through the petals of the flowers. His laughter was the only thing that broke the stillness. He was no longer afraid, and somehow, neither was she. I'll do it, Naomi said, determination creeping into her voice. I'll tell the world. She ended the call and walked outside, where Ravel stood by the garden, his gaze soft as he touched the flowers. The light around him shimmered, an ethereal reminder of the life he had given to this world. Naomi stood beside him, looking out at the bright petals in the morning sun. You ready for this? She asked quietly. Ravel turned to her, his expression unreadable. I am ready to go where my people cannot, to show what kindness can grow. She nodded, her voice soft. Then let's show them. The first news reports went live that afternoon. Naomi stood before a camera, her community behind her, telling the world everything she had come to know. The flowers in her yard weren't just a miracle, they were a solution to a world that had long been poisoned. She spoke of Ravel, of the choices he had made to save life, not destroy it. As the broadcast went on, Naomi's mind raced, her heart beating faster. The agents hadn't returned, but she knew that wouldn't last. They were coming for Ravel, coming for the flowers, for the hope they represented. But this time Naomi was ready. In the weeks that followed, something incredible happened. The world responded, not with fear, but with hope. People flooded Naomi's neighborhood, curious about the garden that could heal, about the alien who had brought it to life. Scientists, environmentalists, even politicians showed up, eager to study the plants, eager to learn. The flowers, which had once been seen as an alien threat, were now a beacon of possibility. And as the garden grew, so did the connections between two worlds, one old, one new. Earth began to heal in ways Naomi never imagined, and Ravel, no longer hiding, stood beside her every day, watching the world change. Naomi knew it wasn't perfect. There would still be obstacles ahead, still fears to face. But for the first time she felt truly hopeful, knowing that with every petal that bloomed, there was another chance for humanity to choose kindness, to choose growth. As she looked at the flowers, their soft light glowing in the late afternoon sun, Naomi whispered to herself, "We did it, Mama, we did it." A year had passed since the first flower bloomed in Naomi's backyard. Autumn had returned to Atlanta, carrying crisp evenings and golden skies. But this year the wind held something new, a quiet joy, a weightless hope that hadn't been there before. The neighborhood had changed. Naomi had changed. Micah ran barefoot across the soft grass, now blanketed with petals from blossoms that shimmered like starlight. Laughter rang from the children who played near the gate, their voices high and carefree. Naomi stood on the porch, arms crossed gently, watching with pride as families wandered through what had once been an overgrown patch of earth. Now it was a living garden, a sanctuary. Behind her, Ravel emerged from the house, his glow softer than when he arrived, more rooted somehow. He wore the hand-stitched tunic Micah had made him, adorned with earth patterns and symbols borrowed from African textiles. He stepped beside Naomi in silence, the way one might step beside an old friend. "It is beautiful," he said, gazing out at the illuminated yard. Naomi nodded. "You helped make it that way." "I only planted," Ravel said gently. "You're the one who stayed." A breeze rolled through the trees, scattering tiny luminous petals through the air. Naomi reached out and caught one between her fingers. It pulsed faintly, warm and alive. "They say the soil's changed for miles," she said. "The flowers adapted to our world. They're spreading on their own now, naturally." Ravel turned to her. "That is what life does when given the chance." Naomi smiled. "We've got new ones blooming at the church, the school. Even City Hall asked for some. Folks finally stopped asking where they came from. Now they ask how to grow them." The sun dipped lower behind the trees, casting amber light across the garden. As night approached, lanterns were lit throughout the neighborhood. It had become a tradition, the Night of Lights, where everyone celebrated the moment they chose courage over fear. The first year, it had been just Naomi, Micah, and a few brave neighbors. But tonight, the whole block was gathered, a dozen homes stringing soft lights, candles, and glowing petals along porches and fences. Some even sang, songs old and new, blending church rhythms with sounds Ravel had taught them. Micah ran up, eyes wide. "Mama, come quick!" Naomi followed him to the garden's edge, where the children stood pointing at the sky. Ravel joined them as they all looked up. High above, drifting through the stars, were flowers. Glowing petals, hundreds of them, raining slowly from above like gentle comets. Charavel's voice trembled with emotion. "They are from my people," he said, "a sign of peace, of understanding." The crowd grew silent as they watched the petals descend, floating through the sky like blessings. Some landed softly on rooftops, others disappeared into the breeze. Tears welled in Naomi's eyes. "They're saying thank you," she whispered. Ravel nodded. "And goodbye." The realization hit her like a quiet wave. "You're leaving?" "I must," he said softly. "My time here is complete. The garden grows. The message was received. Now, another world waits." Naomi's voice caught in her throat. "You don't have to go." Ravel turned to her, his expression full of warmth. "I do, but you, Naomi Carter, you showed them what no one else could. That love and protection are the roots of all lasting things. You were never just shelter. You were the soil." She pressed her hand to her heart. "You were family." "And always will be," he said. The crowd stood in reverent silence as one last flower, glowing brighter than the rest, bloomed at the center of the garden. Ravel stepped toward it, and with a soft hum he vanished, light folding into light. Micah clutched Naomi's hand. "Do you think he'll come back?" She smiled through tears. "I think he never really left." As the sky above shimmered with drifting petals and the earth below bloomed brighter than ever, Naomi turned to the camera, her voice clear. If Ravel's story touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories that remind us sometimes humanity's greatest power is kindness. And click the next video on your screen to keep exploring the stars with us.